Okay, good morning everyone. We're going to get started with our quarterly TAPS webinar for July. Today our topic is how to engage youth with Smarter Lunchroom strategies, and we're very excited to have you all here today. So just a few conference call guidelines before we get started. Your full attention during the webinar is appreciated. Please make sure to mute your phones during the webinar so that we don't have any background noise. If you have any questions, they'll be answered at the end of the presentation, and you can type those into the chat box throughout the presentation. We will have a post-webinar evaluation, so please take a few minutes to complete that and give us your feedback. This webinar will be recorded and posted on the TAPS resource page so that you can access it later and share with your colleagues who were unable to attend. And we will also be posting the resources that we share today on the TAPS resource page, as well as emailing them out to participants who attended. So today's agenda, we'll have some quick updates on the Smarter Lunchrooms movement of California from Heather Reed from the California Department of Education, and then Mitria Munyon from the Public Health Institute will give us an introduction to youth engagement and kind of explain its importance. We'll have Catherine Soul, Shannon Klisch, Melissa Lafreniere, and Andrea Hollister from the UC Cooperative Extension in San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara counties presenting on their work with Student Nutrition Advisory Councils. And then Raymond Diaz from the National Health Foundation will give us a presentation on engaging partners to lead youth engagement. Lastly, Candace Ames will close up with sharing some resources for youth engagement, and Candace is from the Dairy Council of California. So our objectives for today's webinar is that you all will understand effective strategies partnering organizations have developed and implemented to engage students. You will be able to identify at least one strategy for incorporating youth engagement into your SLM work, and you will feel confident in being able to support school districts and to implement student engagement strategies to support healthy eating. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Heather Reed from the California Department of Education for some Smarter Lunchrooms Movement of California updates.
Thank you, Marianne. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and to celebrate yet another year of Smarter Lunchroom Movement in California. I'm Heather Reed, as Marianne mentioned. I'm a nutrition education consultant with the California Department of Education, and I'll be sharing with you a brief update of the year in review. So we've had quite the year. Just in this past year, we did another series of food service director workshops on the principles and practices of Smarter Lunchroom. We had 5 locations, and we had almost 250 participants, 79 school districts, and then 7 charter schools. We also had a good participation from the California Department of Public Health and local health departments with about 50. UC CalFresh has participants, and of course Dairy Council. There were a number of TAPS trainings conducted, mostly by Marianne, around the state, and 97 TAPS have been trained. We now have 126 certified TAPS, which is wonderful, and Cornell has blessed that process. And Smarter Lunchroom at multiple conferences, including a pre-conference for the Childhood Obesity, the California School Nutrition Association, the Industry Conference, the Cornell Symposium, and Utah State Nutrition Association Conference. So I'm trying to see. Okay, yes. So one of the things that we've also accomplished this year is we had funding from Kaiser, which we totally appreciated, to help support the workshops. In addition, we obtained funding from Team Nutrition FNS for give out Smarter Lunchroom mini grants to school districts. And so we awarded 25 school districts with a small grant so that they could implement Smarter Lunchrooms into schools, train their cafeteria staff, connect Nutrition Ed, which we were really excited about, to the SLM focus areas, and then eventually integrate it with local school wellness policy, and also to evaluate the success to have some results in California, particularly around plate waste. And here are some of our wonderful TAPs at the Sacramento Grantee Orientation. We did a road trip theme, so you can see some of the folks on the left. And then on the right, the TAPs that were really instrumental in leading small group discussions with no time to train module demonstrations, as well as doing part of the Nutrition Education Village and featuring the options for nutrition education. So really appreciate that. And many of the TAPs consulted with their schools while they were there and got their action plans started. Almost half of them have already completed self-assessment scorecards for their sites, and we really appreciate at CDE if you've completed those with your school districts to send them on into us, and we'll send them to you when we get them. So we're real excited to launch the year, and thanks so much to all the TAPs for all the great support in getting this project going. So what's next for 2016? Well, we're going to continue the TAPS quarterly webinars, which I think have been fantastic, and thanks to Mary Ann and Candace for their leadership for that. We will continue our monthly Nudge newsletter, which is getting national subscriptions. We'll do the Spring 2017 Food Service Director Principles and Practices workshops once again. And we're working on an online toolkit for the TAPS, which is being updated as we speak to make the tools more helpful for all the TAPs. So look for that. And we'll be featuring at the end of the year some case studies from the Team Nutrition schools and some reports that we'll share. And then we're planning to do a number of conference presentations. One's coming up just next week at the Society for Nutrition Education and Behavior, which we're calling Systems Behavior Change for School Environments, Taking Nutrition Education to the Next Level, and it features Smarter Lunchroom. We have an application in for CSNA where we want to do a virtual site visit, and Leslie Pring is going to be helping with that videotaping. And then we plan to submit a session for the obesity conference as well. We've had quite the year, and I believe that's, if you have any questions about what's going on, please feel free to contact me or Mary Ann or Candace or anyone else. And thank you once again for joining us today, and I will now turn it over to our next presenter. Oh, we have a poll.
Yes. Thank you so much, Heather. We really appreciate you giving us just a little bit of insight into all of the work that we've accomplished this year. So we did have a quick poll. I just kind of want to see where you are in your work with Smarter Lunchrooms and youth engagement. So the question is, are you currently doing any work with youth engagement? So you can select yes or no. Great. It looks like we're about pretty evenly split, a little more yes than no. So hopefully after today, those of you who are no's will feel more confident in utilizing some of the strategies we discussed to engage youth, and hopefully that number will start increasing. So I'm going to turn it over to Mitria from the Public Health Institute.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Good morning, everyone. As she said, my name is Mitria Munyon, and I'm with the Public Health Institute Center for Wellness and Nutrition. I'm excited to be included today and happy to share some ideas around youth engagement with you. To provide a little bit of background, the center has been contracted with the UC CalFresh to support youth engagement pilot site focused on Smarter Lunchroom, garden education, physical activity, and a newer approach to UC CalFresh, youth-led participatory action research within middle and high school. There are a few overarching goals to the pilot. One, to understand and share current engagement strategies within UC CalFresh nutrition education programs, increase authentic engagement efforts within programs supporting increased involvement in leadership of young people with PSE changes, fostering strategic partnerships such as 4-H to support youth engagement efforts, and connecting UC CalFresh programs to a continuum approach with education and engagement from elementary to middle school and to high school, and ultimately with a career pathway opportunity. This is a logic model that helps provide a visual of the continuum approach, beginning with education from that's already happening by inserting small changes towards engagement at elementary schools, such as increasing choices for young people, encouraging feedback and youth perspective, sharing responsibilities, and engaging in genuine dialogue with young people. These small changes will help prime young people moving into middle school for deeper engagement opportunities, such as environmental assessments, peer-to-peer approaches, and teaching others. Continuing to build on leadership skills and with young people and building foundation for youth and adult partnerships can help lead to young people consulting on project direction, presenting and teaching adults, and advocating for policy systems and environmental change efforts. These yellow buckets that go across the spectrum of elementary to middle school are suggestions as developmentally appropriate for these typical settings. But we know that we have to acknowledge that not every setting is identical. So, for example, peer-to-peer education can be extremely successful with upper elementary students and equally successful with high schoolers. Technically, around 5th grade, students are becoming more aware of their immediate environment. So environmental assessments such as photo voice and observations may be great projects for upper elementary students. But more in-depth projects could include like focus groups, interviews, and community mapping. These are more appropriate for high school settings. My main point here is that engagement approaches should be targeted at youth at a young person's capacity. And with every group, that's slightly different. It takes a dedicated adult to be able to build a relationship with the group to best identify the approaches that are appropriate for that group. So in the world of serving and teaching young people about nutrition education and healthy lifestyles, some may ask, why is it important to actually engage them? And so I'd like to share a story with you guys about a high school youth engagement project. This is a somewhat well-known story, so if you know it, at least you're all muted and you can't blurt out the answers. So, a high school in the Bay Area had a wonderful salad bar in the cafeteria, and not one student was partaking from it at all. The question from adults and professionals was why? Well, perhaps, the veggies weren't fresh. Maybe they had never tried it before. Was it not appetizing? Maybe it was out of sight and out of mind. It just had bad placement. Maybe there was just a better option. None of these things were the problem. A student team came together and unveiled the issue with this particular salad bar. And because of the trusting relationships and engagement with the adult allies, they uncovered that there was a rumor going around the local school that local gangs were poisoning that salad bar. This is a serious issue. Students were afraid to bring up to adults, and the student peers were able to bring this issue to light. The youth group proposed that the salads be packaged to appease the concern, and the produce was no longer all went to waste. This is a prime example that those most affected by the issue are the best equipped to understand it and to help address it. So as we go into these youth environments, including their perspectives may prove to be the biggest asset to successful change. I do want to get into some tangible Smarter Lunchroom examples, but first I'd like to actually talk about Hart's Ladder. Now, Hart's Ladder of Young People's Participation is a theory and a tool that we, with the center, use to identify where projects are currently engaging and what shifts can be made to increase engagement. Now, I hope that we can all agree that manipulating, tokenizing, and using youth as decoration is unacceptable, so I can easily skip to rung 4. Now, as typical with nutrition education, when adding engagement, rung 4 is a comfort zone. Young people are assigned and informed. This is clearly engagement. In this case, an adult has shared an assignment that they have deemed appropriate with the young people or a group of young people. But beyond assigning, there's a wealth of opportunity that can be approached one strategy at a time at a time, as illustrated with the previous logic model. In this case, a small switch to informing young people about a variety of tasks that need to be completed and engaging them on what they would actually like to participate with gives them voice in the project. And you have, in ways, moved that specific level of engagement up to rung 5. There are two major points that I really want to make clear when using Hart's letter to assess where a project is and improve engagement strategies. The first is that, with the exception of 1 through 3, as I've already noted, there's no wrong place to be. If you're not operating on rung 8, that doesn't mean that your program is any less impactful than one that is. It's simply a different level of engagement and often reflects the environment that you're working in. Moving engagement from one rung to another is not an easy task at all. It's seldom accomplished by one individual alone. Often, the environment where a project is facilitated has a lot to do with the level of engagement. The people and the partners involved play a huge role in how much or how little a program can authentically engage young people. It often takes building relationships, strong relationships, with adults and organizations in support of youth voice to actually affect an engagement level change. I went too fast. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into a few common ways that engaging youth in Smarter Lunchrooms movement can be done. And in each case, we'll look at strategies, but also increasing that engagement where possible. So establishing a student nutrition advisory committee is a great way to engage students in improving their lunchroom. The Smarter Lunchroom movement materials actually suggest having students create fun names and artwork for the menu items. That's a great first step. If you are looking to expand or increase engagement, consider before assigning, actually asking students how they think that they could promote the specific items within their school community. You can share videos, for examples, and of what other schools have been doing to ignite some inspiration. A simple shift in the conversation from giving them the opportunity to voice their opinion in this larger project, even if the group suggests taking actions already suggested through the Smarter Lunchroom materials, such as creating fun names or decorating the cafeteria. Regardless if the suggestions are the same, the group of young people has actually made the suggestions and now have increased ownership in that specific activity. Okay. I'm sure that we can all agree that the observation checklist is too overwhelming to actually hand over to a 5th grader, but that doesn't mean that they cannot be helpful in the observation process. After discussing the larger goal of observation, an observation task is a great way to involve youth in the process. Tallying waste, looking for jams in the flow of lunchroom, tracking meals that are purchased. There's a lot of different ways to engage them in this process that doesn't include actually handing over a checklist and giving them that responsibility. Another suggestion is actually allowing them to lead peer feedback sessions. If you're going to gain feedback from young people, who better to ask than a student leader? Encouraging peer-to-peer environment engagement is an effective way to incorporate youth involvement. Allowing youth buy-in and choosing the appropriate questions is always great as well. Taking photos is slowly becoming a universal skill. I think my 6-month-old nephew just took a selfie the other day. But seriously, with a few parameters and clear instructions, youth could take phenomenal peer before and after photos of the cafeteria. They will take the photos from their own perspectives, and a debrief actually may help identify some areas of improvement that were missed. I think those are just a few examples of tangible ways to increase youth engagement with the Smarter Lunchroom movement. I do want to highlight that all 4 of those examples were built around explanations, discussions, and debriefs, all imperative to building strong relationships and partnerships with young people. It begins with basic relationship building, and once you build trust with young people, you would be surprised how far engagement can take you. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about youth engagement strategies, successes, lessons learned, we have our 2 inspiring youth booklets that highlight youth-led participatory action research projects around broader nutrition and physical activity projects. But I'm also excited to announce that coming soon is our newest report, Inspiring Healthy Communities, Empowering Youth in Los Angeles County. In this report, Raymond Diaz's group of youth will be highlighted. Raymond will be speaking later on this webinar, so you'll get to hear from him. And in this report, you get to hear from young people themselves about the impacts of authentically being engaged. So stay tuned. That's coming very soon. And for those resources and many others, please stay connected with the Center for Wellness and Nutrition, our website, join our e-news, follow us on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And with that, thank you for your time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end. Marianne?
Great, thank you so much, Mitri. I think it's really helpful to have your expertise presented today so that everybody has a stronger understanding of the importance of youth engagement, and you gave some really great examples of utilizing youth engagement strategies specific to Smarter Lunchrooms. So now we're going to move on to actually hear some best practices from people who have engaged youth around Smarter Lunchrooms successfully. So our first presentation is from our San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara UC Cooperative Extension program. So we have Dr. Catherine Soul, who is the Youth Families and Communities Advisor. We have Shannon Klisch, who is the Community UC CalFresh Supervisor. We have Melissa Lafreniere, who is a Community Nutrition Education Specialist. And we have Andrea Hollister, who is from the 4-H program as a representative too. So go ahead, ladies.
Thanks, Marianne. Hi, my name is Catherine Soul, and I am the Families and Communities Advisor for the University of California Cooperative Extension. I have a position that allows me to work with both our UC CalFresh Nutrition Education Program as well as our 4-H Youth Development Program. And we've been working on a collaboration that we'd like to share with you today, talking about our Student Nutrition Advisory Councils and specifically for strategies that we've been applying for youth engagement and how you might be able to apply them in your counties as well. So this work comes out of Santa Barbara County, specifically in Santa Maria, which is on the central coast of California, halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco. Santa Maria has a population of just over 101,000 people and a median household income of $50,753. We work mostly in the Santa Maria Bonita School District, and in this school district, we're looking at a youth population that's 94% Hispanic, 69% coming from homes where English is not the primary language spoken. In our schools, we have a range from 88% to 94% of student populations that have free and reduced meals. And looking district-wide, that 61% of the parents of our youth did not graduate from high school. So we just kind of wanted to give you a little context of the area. So this is an idealized process of what we were able to do and what we would encourage you to think about in terms of developing a snack program. And we developed this model in hindsight, so definitely not the reality of how it happened. But first, looking at identifying vision, getting administrative support, developing recruitment strategies, training and capacity building, progressive responsibility for youth, and celebrating. So we're going to talk about each of these steps individually. So for identifying vision for our program and specific to our Student Nutrition Advisory Councils, we were really looking at an opportunity to engage youth as well in their healthy living and advocacy for their communities. And this was work that was coming across our program, across 4-H and nutrition education. So it also was built out of an assessment of our students and schools' needs. So our vision really for SNAC here was to engage youth in healthy living and advocacy.
Hi, this is Shannon Klish, the Community Education Supervisor. So one of our steps was definitely getting administration support. We were doing youth engagement with Smarter Lunchrooms movement at the beginning of the year, but it wasn't until mid-year that we started this collaboration with our 4-H program and our Food Smart Family. We got some funding through the Food Smart Families grant program. So that required us to kind of regroup and meet with our administrators once again. And so those were really productive meetings. However, in retrospect, I wish we had brought them in even sooner. We kind of brought them this program that we had laid out and applied for. And in retrospect, it would have been great to just bring them on to say, is this possible to have students be teaching in a classroom? And they would have told me, well, there's an issue with pulling 5th and 6th graders out of their classroom and how much time they can spend away from their instructional minutes. So, but really, you know, going forward this year, starting from the get-go as we're doing our program plan, is really going to them and talking to them about what their needs are for working with the older students and what their vision is for health and wellness at their school and how we can engage youth in both the 4-H program and the UC CalFresh program. We're also looking at engaging teachers and trying to find a lead teacher at each of our sites that we're working with to create more programming sustainability. And of course, working with food service and getting their support from day one. We did a district-wide training on Smarter Lunchrooms movement, and we have a lead community education specialist and a 4-H person that is sort of our liaison with the cafeteria manager at each of the sites. Okay.
Hello, this is Melissa Lafreniere from UC CalFresh. We developed a recruitment strategy based on the schools that we were already working in. So instead of just choosing a place to start this program, we already had a relationship with this school and with the students. We had been working with the students in Shaping Healthy Choices program. And so we wanted to recruit some of those students that we had been working closely with. But also, I had been working with student council, which was 4th through 6th grade. So we wanted to include those students so we'd be able to have the program continue through the years. We chose for this specific project the Adam Elementary School because we were able to do an extended day program and we were given an hour and a half 2 times a week after school. To promote our club, we had our student council promote it, our teachers, and we made it exciting. We told the students that they'd get to do some fun things, they'd get to do leadership. You can see on the flyers, these are the flyers we actually gave out, and this student in the middle is a student trying to get some more students to become SNAC members. Once we got our students, we had them enrolled in 4-H, so they were 4-H members, and we provided a training to build capacity so they would be able to further their ideas, basically. So at our training, it was 6 hours, and our main focuses were basic nutrition, gardening, food safety, leadership, public speaking, Smarter Lunchrooms movement, and cooking. Also, throughout our classes, our snack clubs, we also provided some more training to help build on these. So we decided that we couldn't just start at the top of the ladder. So we wanted to start with our youth training so they were informed, they knew, they were able to have some ideas of what this program could do and what they would be able to do with this. So we started at about rung 4 with our training, and then our students wanted a cooking academy. So we were able to provide them with a cooking academy through the school. We had one of the food service provide a cooking academy for them. And we also had the students come up with their own snack group agreements. So this was their own rules for their meetings. Also, they came up with the script. So in a few more slides, we'll get to see their video that these students created. So they initiated what they wanted to do for this video project, and they created what should go in the script. They talked about it. They all came together, and then then all of them voted on what should go into this script. Also, we started having the youth lead their own meetings. They came up with their own branding, which you can see in the right-hand corner of all the slides. It says snack. And they came up with this, what they thought snack really meant. So you can see physical activity, fruits and vegetables, lots of colors and fun. And our goal for the snack group was to share decision making. We didn't quite get there, but we were trying to get there. It was at the end of the year, so we weren't quite there yet.
Thanks, Melissa. And I just want to comment, too, that this illustration is really to show how we used Roger's Hart's ladder of young people's participation that Mitria just spoke about to look at how we were engaging our youth and how we were helping them to have progressive engagement and responsibility, so that we were moving from informing and educating youth to consulting them in terms of where their interests were, to starting an adult-initiated project that was really then picked up and led by the youth, moving into youth-initiated projects, so things that they told us that they wanted to do, and supporting them as they went forward with developing branding and logos. And finally, as Melissa's mentioning, our goal is really to make this shared decision-making so that we do have adults and youth working together, and we're looking towards developing that into our work plans for the next year, so that we have youth who are part of SNAC are able to fully participate in decision-making processes and things like school wellness policies, working with their board of supervisors or city council to begin to make changes for health advocacy in their community.
Okay, so after everything, we celebrated with our youth. First at each school, we celebrated, most of us with a cooking party, some with a photo booth party, and then we invited all of our snack kids to go climbing at a climbing gym. They had a lot of fun climbing and getting to know one another because they're from different schools. And then we also were reevaluating what's next, what should we work on next.
Hi, this is Andrea with the 4-H program. Part of our partnership with 4-H and UC CalFresh began with the Food Smart Families FSF grant, and this allowed us to work with the CalFresh and their staff and also the youth in these schools that they have already created relationships with. And so it allowed us to do a lot of trainings outside of school hours. So 4-H was flexible in the sense of we could do things on the weekends, we could do a lot of trainings after school or outside of school in different locations, and this also helped out with transportation issues that came about. And it also just helped us build a structure for a youth club.
Okay, and also we worked with Santa Maria Bonita School District. We had already had our relationship with them, but with their partnership, we were able to get students out of the classroom. We were able to get a spot for our club meetings. We had food service set up a salad bar. They mocked it up for us for our video. We were able to get teacher support, and also the administrative assistants. They helped us collect permission slips and put out flyers for us. Also, Extension, which you'll see our video in just a second, we joined the Healthy Food Choices in Schools Community of Practice, which is in the SLM TAP handbook. And on that webinar, they were talking about a video project. And so we decided, oh, we have students that would be great for this. So we asked our students if they want to be part of it, and they said yes. And so you'll get to see the video in just a second.
Hi, we're student nutrition advisors and we want to let other students know about the school salad bar. Some students do not know what is in the salad bar, or some students do not know they could make different food from the salad bar. Some students also think that the bell peppers are hot, especially if they see seeds on them. You can make delicious stuff with the salad bar. You could make delicious, yummy treats with the salad bar. Is the pepper hot? Can I mix the food? The peppers on the salad bar are sweet. They're good. You could mix the food however you want. Try it. Did you like the salad? It's good. Do you like it? I like it. I'm going to tell my friends. And it's healthy! I think if more students knew what was on the salad bar and had to mix them to make them tastier, they would use the salad bar more.
Add lettuce and tomatoes to your burger or other sandwich.
Ask your cafeteria if you could put signs or labels of the salad bar, so you know what you're eating. Research information about items on the salad bar and post information for other students to see. Carrots help your eyes. Greens have calcium. Try new foods.
The canned pear or peaches can go on the salad. Try the salsa on the salad. Don't be afraid, try new foods.
Ask your cafeteria to post pictures of different kinds of salads. If you try a new food and you like it, tell your friends.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to try something new at your salad bar today.
Okay, so after that great video, we have some strategies to take away. So one of our main strategies is to make the youth voice the expert voice. One way of doing that is to allow the students to come up with their own ideas and have an open space for their thoughts. So this meant at first we just let them write down their ideas on a piece of paper, write down whatever they wanted, and let them come up with, oh, what could be a good idea? Then after they wrote down their ideas, this is for the script specifically. They wrote down their ideas, and then they came up with a consensus to agree or disagree on what parts they wanted for their video project.
And our youth-adult partnerships allowed us to engage both youth and adults in meaningful activities that contribute to our 4-H positive youth development. We were able to connect with community partners to utilize each other's abilities to work with the youth, and this allowed us to share equally in the decision-making process with the youth and adults.
Okay, another one of our kind of takeaway lessons or strategies, especially when we're working with our younger youth. These were, for the video, they were 4th through 6th graders. So it really created a need to build their capacity in an intentional way. We realized we couldn't start with just, asking them, what do you want to do in this broad manner? We had to do some training and some nutrition education for them so that they could build a strong foundation. And then as we went along in our work with them, we were able to increase their engagement and responsibility, whether it was in leading peer-to-peer lessons, being recess activators, developing a script for a Smarter Lunchrooms video, and that sort of things. But we really found that, especially working with younger youth, it was really important to build that foundation first.
Thank you so much for listening to our strategies and our ideas about how you can engage youth through SNAC in the Smarter Lunchrooms movement. And we just wanted to recognize that this has been 3 years worth of effort to integrate our programming. And in the last 2 years, we've moved towards a comprehensive nutrition education model at our school sites so that we've really been able to build true relationships with these youth to get to know them on a personal level and help them become advocates in their communities for healthy living. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much, ladies, for your wonderful presentation. I think, Catherine, you made a really good point at the end there that these things take a lot of time and a lot of relationship building, so we can't expect to have it happen overnight, but it's clear with your dedication and your hard work and these partnerships that you've established that you were able to accomplish some really great things. I think it's also helpful that you were able to highlight some of your strategies for engaging elementary school students. As Mitria mentioned earlier, you really have to target your strategies towards the age group that you're working with. So it's helpful to see your perspective and your approach to engaging elementary youth. And our next presenter, Raymond Diaz from the, from National Health Foundation, is going to present on his work engaging youth in a high school setting. So go ahead, Raymond.
Hi, everybody. My name is Raymond. I'm a senior program coordinator here at National Health Foundation. Kind of want to just talk to you a little bit about our Health Academy program in South Los Angeles and kind of the overall things we're working on, and I'll provide you guys with an example of one of our youth projects. So I want to give you guys just a quick snapshot of the community that we work in, National Health Foundation. We're based in downtown Los Angeles, but the majority of our work is done in South LA. And so just to kind of keep with the theme, median household for the area for a family of four is around $28,000. About 17% of children are obese, with another 20% of being at risk of being overweight. 82% of the children eat fast food at least once a week, and then about 11% of children consume about 5 or more servings of food per day. Only 11%. On top of that, about half of the students or half of the children in South LA consume sugary drink at least once a day. So a lot of stuff to work on, a lot of improvements we made in the community, but we still got a long way to go. Okay, so our program, it's an after-school program. We're based at Thomas Jefferson High School. We have a great relationship with the school administration there, where they provide us with a classroom, and basically any space that we need to conduct some of these projects. So on the Jefferson High School campus, there's actually 3 schools on campus currently with a population of about 1,600 students. 2 of those schools share the same schedule. There's another school that there's a charter school that does, they're off doing their own thing. About 87% are eligible for free and reduced meals, meaning that basically everybody on campus is eligible for free meals. So no one pays for lunch when they're going to the cafeteria. 40% of those students participate in the breakfast program. So LAUSD has this great Breakfast in the Classroom initiative they started back in 2014, where before the only way to get breakfast was to come before school started, so before 7:30, before 8 o'clock. And but now during their first period of class, the food actually gets delivered to each classroom, where students have about 10 to 15 minutes additional to eat breakfast together with everybody. From that, we saw that only about 45% of students are participating in the lunch program. So that was one indicator that we saw, like, okay, maybe this is something that we can focus on, where if everybody's eligible for free meals and less than half of the students are participating in the lunch program, that was immediately a red flag for our students. 43% of the students report waiting at least 10 minutes to grab lunch. Right now at Thomas Jefferson High School, the lunch is about 30 minutes, and so if you're thinking as a student, if I'm going to spend a third of my time waiting in line for lunch, or using that extra 10-15 minutes to hang out with my friends and just grab something from the student store, that was a big problem, and one of the reasons why participation was so low. So I want to kind of get back, talk a little about our Health Academy program. I'll talk about how I got that participation data in a second. But we are funded through the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health through the Nutrition Education Obesity Prevention Grants. Our program itself consists of about 40 students broken up into 4 teams. Each team is working on one youth-led policy system and environmental change. So basically what a PSC is, for those of you that don't know, is creating a project that's going to affect the policy, change some type of system, or the actual built environment, whether that's inside the school or in the community right outside Jefferson High School. We meet weekly with the students. We are very kind of embedded within the school itself. We kind of take it upon ourselves to get to know everybody from the janitorial staff to the plant manager to the cafeteria staff, teachers, especially the principal. We developed our own nutrition education based and youth empowerment curriculum. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what our curriculum is and how we kind of use that to recruit students. We kind of pulled from many different kind of sources to develop our curriculum. One of them was, I think Candace is going to share with you when she speaks. But another one was developed by the Champions for Change program, playing the policy game. So kind of using that as a model for one of our teams. I think the previous speakers are talking about how the type of skills that they teach their students. And so we break it down into 2 kind of methods. One is we want to share students some professional development, stuff like active listening, public speaking, anything from developing an elevator pitch, but everything kind of has a healthy twist to it. So if we, for example, like when we do our elevator pitches and students have to develop like a 2-minute speech, it would be focused around something healthy, like pick an orange and then research the orange and then develop an elevator pitch, kind of encouraging other students to eat an orange. And then we go back to our project-based skills. So we teach students on like how to develop a survey, how to conduct a focus group, how to interview adults, what adults to seek to interview, things like that. And so with those 2 components, we've had some pretty successful projects so far. We initially start off, We initially start off with a kind of like an overview of what the community looks like. On the previous slide that we showed you, we're kind of discussing some of the disparities in South LA. We, as a program, already kind of know some of the kind of challenges that are affecting the community. So we kind of take pride in kind of going in, starting the program, not really knowing the projects we're going to be working on, and kind of leaving that up to the students to figure out what they think is the most important and the best way to kind of intervene in those challenges. We use the Youth Participatory Action Research Model, where we're assessing the environment, developing an action plan, engaging the community, stakeholder support, and then documenting the public health outcomes, and then presenting them to various key stakeholders, whether that's the principal, corner store owner, LA City, county officials, basically anybody that'll listen to us. And so our program really kind of takes a look at not just the school itself, but the community, and say, where are students eating, where's the community eating, and how can we kind of introduce healthy options into their store. So if you look at this little model that we created, we kind of see, like, right, so one of the things that students kind of have an issue with is access to water. So it's like, okay, let's figure out what we can do with water. There's another corner store that's right across the street from the school that's, usually the corner stores in the area are promoting a lot of sugary snacks, a lot of soda, things like that. And it's like, how can we work with that store owner to promote healthy items in his store? Okay, cool. Right. So how we recruited these students was, the first thing right off the bat was we went in, we spoke with the principal. We already had a previous relationship with him based on one of our previous programs where we focused on pregnant and parenting teams. And so when we brought this idea to him, he was on board, anything to help out his students. And so with that, we gained access to classrooms. We're able to present during conferences, or when they were having big presentations in the auditorium, things like that. They really kind of let us do things that I guess normal outsiders wouldn't have been able to do. We did a ton of flyering. The classroom presentations seem to be the most effective way of getting students, especially like a large group of students. There's about 30 to 40 students per classroom. So take a couple of minutes from the teacher's time, tell them about the program, and then hand out applications. We also, through that, we made a commitment to interview every single student that applies to the program. So on average, we just finished our third year of the program. On average, we were getting about 100 applications per year. And so knowing, it was more to kind of give students the experience of going through an interview process. We know that if we kind of made it a little bit of a challenge for students to apply for the program, that we're hoping that will help us out with retention. Another thing that was part of our application process was that we asked every student to get a nomination from a mentor, a teacher, principal, coach, anybody that can vouch for their work ethic or their interest in making the community healthier. So I want to focus a little bit on one of our teams. We, as I mentioned before, we have 4 youth teams. We give each team the opportunity to kind of name themselves within the program. These guys chose veggies over everything. And so our project was, we started seeing that based off the data of participation, knowing that South LA is a food desert, knowing that transportation can be an issue too when you're seeking out, parents are seeking out supermarkets. And also knowing that the LAUSD food is probably the healthiest it's been in a really long time, we just kind of assumed that, if students should be eating at the cafeteria just for the simple fact that this will probably be the healthiest meal that they'll eat all day. And so what we immediately did before we started conducting any assessments or started using the Smarter Lunchroom movement assessment scorecard was we went in, we spoke with the cafeteria manager to kind of get her side of the story, why students weren't participating, what some of the challenges she was seeing as the manager, and having a limited staff. And so we went there kind of with, okay, let's figure out how can we come together, how can we help each other out, increasing participation. She's mentioning she wants to increase participation because that leads to her in having an increased staff. So there was already everybody kind of had a stake in what we were working on. So after our initial meeting with her, getting participation data, then we said, okay, now let's figure out, let's talk with the students. Let's talk with the student body and figure out why they aren't eating. We conducted peer-to-peer surveys, and now the surveys themselves were very tailored to the school. Some of the issues that the students brought up was like the wait times. Their favorite menu item was always, being the first one that was gone. There's a stigma going around about the cafeteria food. Another thing that factored into that was the competitive food sales. So there's a cafeteria. There's a student store that sells snacks. Leadership is selling pizza and other things, during the week to raise funds. There's also this, we call it the underground market of food, where students, young entrepreneurs are bringing in and selling tortas, tamales, basically anything that's not sold in the cafeteria. So we kind of took all of that into consideration when we were developing a strategy for this program. So after we did all our initial assessments, we went out and did the Smarter Lunchroom Movement Assessment Scorecard. So I know that the scorecard itself is pretty long. It's 2 pages. It's a 2-page assessment. And so what we did was we wanted to make sure that the students were the ones that were actually conducting the assessments. They were kind of leading the way. And so what we did was we scheduled the time where we were going to come out during lunch to do the scorecard. But what we did was the day before our assessment day, we kind of did like a mock assessment ourselves in the cafeteria, where we went after school. They gave us access to the cafeteria. We assigned we assigned students into pairs, and then everybody had a small section of a section of the scorecard to complete. Now, LAUSD does a pretty good job of some of the things that are already on the scorecard. So there was a few things that we just didn't. Some of the sections we didn't go over, knowing that they might have not applied to the school environment itself, or LAUSD just did a great job of it, and I'm like, okay, we can probably skip this. So some of the things that we kind of looked over was milk. LAUSD does a great job of promoting milk. It's part of the reimbursable meal. So when students are going through the line, they are highly encouraged to grab milk. And in LAUSD, they don't sell any flavored milk anymore. So everything is white milk. Another thing that we skipped on was the reimbursable meals, just for the simple fact that students don't pay for food. And the cafeteria staff already does a really good job of making sure that when students go through the line, that they have every component of a reimbursable meal. And another thing that we kind of skipped on was the a la carte section, just because nothing's sold at the cafeteria. Everybody just goes in line to get the cafeteria food. Let me go back to one of our slides. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the partnerships that we started with. So definitely the cafeteria manager was probably our biggest advocate and the biggest champion of conducting some of these changes. School administration as well. I think having the principal's buy-in from the beginning kind of helps out with time, and with him letting us do some crazy ideas. Also too, when we spoke with the principal, we kind of tailored our presentation in terms of funding. Like we know that the USDA reimburses about $3.15 per meal, and so when we were showing the low participation data to the principal, we kind of switched that into dollars and about how much money he was losing by not having 100% participation in lunch. So they were really receptive to that. And also too, there's the Urban and Environmental Policy Institute, and so her name is Elizabeth Medrano. We met her through at a conference that we were at, and she is one of the greatest champions for school food policy, especially working with youth and parents. So she was there to kind of guide us along the way, teach us some lessons learned from previous programs and things that we should kind of be focusing on when it comes to LAUSD policies and how the cafeteria staff is run. Yeah, I'll hurry. I think I only got a couple more minutes. So these next pictures of pages are, some of it's directly related to Smarter Lunchroom. Some of this is something that we conducted. So if you see in the bottom left picture, that was the day that we did our mock assessment day, where we kind of gathered together, and it's like, okay, you're going to do the fruits and vegetables, you're going to do the, the entree of the day, things like that. I myself went to a Smarter Lunchroom training a couple years ago, and in that training, they had some really, really great tools that we can use. And one of them was kind of redesigning the cafeteria. So one of the things that when we go back and we look at the wait times, we're seeing that wait times were about 10 to 15 minutes. And so it's like, okay, we know that we could probably reduce the time, more students are going to eat there. Before intervention, the kind of like the vibe inside the cafeteria itself was very cumbersome. The line went through the middle of the room, and so students were fighting because they were cutting in line. Students didn't feel comfortable kind of sitting down while everybody else was kind of standing above them, while they were eating. And so we used one of the strategies from that, and students kind of went through and say, how can we make the cafeteria easier to go through? Students like to think that the cafeteria can be kind of a restaurant for them. And so as adults, we wouldn't kind of go into a place or a restaurant that was, everybody's kind of standing over each other. No one really feels comfortable. And so we wanted to get that restaurant vibe in the cafeteria itself. So what we did was we asked students, what's the ideal design to increase or to decrease wait times and to make the cafeteria a more inviting place. And so what you see here, this is the after. And so we did presentations to the cafeteria staff, the plant manager, principal, and they agreed. They're like, okay, let's try it out. And that's kind of like how we proposed it. It's like, it's not permanent. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to what we had originally. But, we felt that, this will probably work. What we did was we increased the number of lines from 1 to 4. There is only one entrance to the cafeteria, so we kind of moved things around, and we added 2 entrances on each side of the cafeteria. Another thing too was the trash cans were right in between the tables, and so what we did was we just pushed the trash cans against the wall and put the majority of them by the exit, so as students are walking out, they can toss out their trash. I'm happy to report that the cafeteria still looks like that. We've been able to decrease wait times to less than 5 minutes, and we've increased the participation by like 17%. So after we kind of did that, we started kind of looking at the food itself. Is how can we get students to understand how kind of make them feel empowered of the food that they're choosing. So we participated with LAUSD to do a menu tasting where where students kind of had input on what some of the items were going to be for the following school year. And so what the youth did was we kind of developed this quit drinking campaign. So for those of you that don't know what drinking is, I myself had to look it up. It's I guess is when you're complaining. So it's a quit complaining about the cafeteria food and choose your menu. And so these flyers were posted all over the school. We did announcements during the morning announcements, letting people know to come out, to come try some of the menus, some of the items that we had available, and to kind of give us their feedback on what they thought. This was a huge success. In the 3 days that we conducted this, we had over 2,000 people, 2,000 students participating over the 3 days on deciding what menu options that they liked. And then if you see in the bottom right, part of our program is that we want to get students out in front of people presenting as much as we possibly can, whether that's leading a meeting during our youth engagement meetings, or where they're going to a conference, anything like that. The more practice that they get doing that, the more confident they feel. And I feel with high school students, since they are, they're a little bit more mature, and you're able to go into detail with some of the topics that we discussed that are kind of affecting their community. This kind of gives them the opportunity to share their story and share what they have to go through on a daily basis. Cool. So this was our second year. So our third year, what we did was we wanted to go further. We had boosted participation to about 65%, and we are still shooting for that 100%. So one of the other things that students talked about was the stigma of the cafeteria itself, that no matter what changes we made inside the cafeteria, some students will never go in there. And so what we did was, when we spoke with the cafeteria manager, she mentioned to us that they have this mobile cart that can be placed outside the cafeteria. And so one of our students kind of like, oh, let's, instead of people having to come to the cafeteria, let's take the cafeteria to the students. And so we created this kind of grab and go line where it was almost like a drive-through line, where students that didn't want to go into the cafeteria can just walk a few steps from there hanging out. We put it right in front of the main area where students are in their quad area, and didn't really do a lot of promotion, just to kind of see what would happen. And it was a big success. We were able to get about an additional 80, 90 students every time, additional from the average amount of daily participation. So we increased participation a bit. And so another thing was access to water. So one of the biggest things that especially high school students talk about is having to drink milk every day. And so we all know the benefits of drinking milk, things like that. But as adults, I myself am not a milk drinker every day. And so students kind of are, the high school students especially, are in that same thinking. They want options to their beverages. And so still keeping with that restaurant vibe of giving students options, of making the cafeteria look nice, we kind of started this water initiative inside the cafeteria, where students would come by after they grab their food and the reimbursable meal items, and they would stop by and they would grab a bottle of water. We partnered with the County Department of Public Health to donate those reusable water bottles you guys see in the photos up top, and we purchased ourselves those 5-gallon igloo tanks, and then filled them up inside the cafeteria, because there was filtered water there, and it worked. Students loved it. I mean, we sold that. We didn't sell them, but we ran out of water bottles every time that we were out there, and we were probably out there about 2 weeks in total. Cool. So sharing some of the results, as mentioned before, there's an increase of about 47% of students reporting a wait time of 5 minutes or less. Another thing that's important too is that we wanted to not only increase participation, but we wanted to increase participation over the 5 days. So we saw an increase of 11% of students actually starting to go into the cafeteria every single day. When we presented our data to the grab and go line to the principal, he was obviously on board. And so next year, that's going to be a permanent fixture right outside the cafeteria. Another thing that we did using the Smarter Lunchroom scorecard was we increased the visibility of the menu signs. One of the ways that we did that was when we spoke with administration, was that when you go into a restaurant, you pretty much have a good idea of what they sell there, and so you wouldn't go anywhere where you didn't really know what they were selling. And so we kind of shared the importance of having a visible menu with staff, and they agreed. And so now, hopefully next year, we'll have a menu inside every single classroom. We developed the initiative for the water consumption, and then we have a pretty strong partnership with the LAUSD Food Services Department. They've been a real kind of a supporter of some of the work that we've been doing. And so students have always been asking, how can we affect what we're eating? And so they actually LAUSD invited us for students to become part of the menu committee. So next year, they'll be working with cafeteria managers from around the district, determine what items get placed on the menu for next year. Cool. Just some challenges of what we went through, kind of showing that things weren't as easy as what they seemed. We went through 4 principals in 3 years. That became, I handed to our students, because that myself would have kind of really discouraged me a lot, but our students kept going. Every year we just had to represent the program to every new principal. Another thing, especially working with high school students, is youth retention. So a lot of them, especially working in a community that's underrepresented, food desert, there's a lot of things that come with that, and so we had to be extremely accommodating to the youth schedules, whether that was they were behind on homework, or they had to go home and work, or they had to pick up their little brother and sister. Our retention was up and down the entire year, or the entire 3 years that we were there. Another thing was navigating through the LUSD landscape. We're the second largest district in the country, and we are the largest district when it comes to the school lunch program in the district. So there's a lot of red tape that we have to get through to talk to some of these people. But the persistence of the youth, I think, understanding why they're doing what they're doing, the importance, and how it's gonna positively affect their, their friends, their little brothers and sisters, they kept going. Another thing was travel. So there's a lot of regulations within LUSD itself on taking students to different locations for conferences or meeting with program partners. So that became kind of a challenge. And so another thing as well that I kind of want to throw in there is recognizing and respecting the challenges that youth face. So I kind of mentioned that a little bit. So kind of when we kind of in our youth meetings, we don't shy away from any issue that the students bring up, especially under the current political climate right now. A lot of students are worried about, their future and things like that. So we definitely discuss some of that stuff and how it relates to community health and then their own personal health. So some of our future plans for the coming future is we still are trying to get to that 100% school participation. We're currently working on creating a toolkit based on some of the lessons learned in our program. And then maybe we're going to be focusing more on an education plan for next year to kind of educate students on the benefits of the cafeteria food. Cool. So that's all I got. You can follow us on Facebook. We have an NHF Health Academy Facebook, or on Instagram as well. And you guys can email me if you have any questions. But thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Raymond. It's so great to hear the work that you're doing and really hear about a youth-led project. So we look forward to hearing more in the future and hopefully accessing some of those resources that you mentioned. So speaking of resources, I'm going to turn it over to Candace Sines from the Dairy Council of California. She's going to present on a few resources that we recommend for using for youth engagement.
Great. Thanks, Marianne. So all of the resources that I'm going to show, they'll be emailed to you with the links for your convenience, so you're not just, trying to look on Google for all of these different resources. So these 3 resources have come from Raymond, actually. So we spoke on the phone, and he said, you can get a salad bar. And we're like, really? You can get a salad bar? And he was like, yeah, if you do the U.S. Healthier Schools Challenge and you do the scorecard, you can do the salad bar. So it's really through Michelle Obama's Let's Move Salad Bars to Schools. And so we have a link for you on that. Another reference that Raymond had made was the Empowering Youth Through Nutrition and Activity. And so that is actually something you can get from the USDA. It's spiral bound, and I believe they are for free, but if you can't get them for free, we'll send you a link to make sure that you can download it for free. And the main chapter that he was referencing to was Chapter 5. So just FYI on that. And then also he used the Champions for Change on youth advocacy, but he also used the recipes for Champions for Change. And then on healthyeating.org, we have a Wellness Wednesday resource that I think is going to be really highly effective. So we just call it Wellness Wednesdays because it's just you can pick any day of the week, and we recommend the middle of the week. So you can it can be Wellness Tuesdays if you want. But essentially what we've created already for you are weekly announcements that students can use for their PA system, their on the intercom or in the classrooms. You can have upper graders, you can have high school students sending out these wellness messages throughout the school. And we also advocate for promoting the food items or what's new or something that's really popular over the PA system as well. On the right-hand side, you'll see that there is that Matching Fun Catchy Names document, And it's slightly changed a bit because what we did, especially on the second page, is we customized it so that, you know, the first page is really kind of getting your idea about how do I create fun, catchy names with these descriptive words with the things that are on this list. But on the second page, we wanted to take it a little bit further so that if those items on the first page aren't even on your menu, it's a good warmer-upper, but on the second page, it's really bringing it back to what it is that you need tomorrow for your school site. So we wanted to make sure that we gave that document to you. And then there is this great resource for Extension. For those of you who don't work for Extension, this is the national website for primarily Extension professionals, but partners and others can research and view what people have done throughout the nation to promote physical activity and healthy eating. And so one of these I wanted to share with you is a recorded webinar, and it's involving middle school students in Smarter Lunchroom design. And you can see here these are the learning objectives to engage the middle school students and cafeteria staff in the Smarter Lunchroom Makeover. Number 2, to use tools for implementing, promoting, and evaluating Smarter Lunchroom Makeover. So again, just something for you if you want to learn a little bit more on it. The Institute of Child Nutrition is actually at the University of Mississippi, and their whole focal point is really training research resources for food service directors, and I think it's really fabulous for our technical advising professionals. We have here, again, I will provide you this link at a later time, there's already surveys created for you. So instead of having to start from scratch on a white piece of paper that's really intimidating, these are already here for your reference. Do contact us. These are the UC CalFresh TAPS resource page, the Dairy Council of California Smarter Lunchroom webpage that we have here, and then you can contact myself, which is Candace, and Mary Ann. I'd like to go ahead and move on to the questions.
Great. Okay, so we've already had a couple of really great questions that were typed in. So the first is from Kate McDevitt, and this is geared towards the UC Cooperative Extension Group in San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties. So the first question is, how were you able to coordinate a 6-hour training for the youth? Was that all in one day or over multiple weeks during the structured time?
Great, thanks. Yeah, that was really coordinated by working in partnership, like I said, with our 4-H program and our UC CalFresh. So our staff put together a training agenda. We held it over one day at one of our school sites, and we were able to bring the youth there for a 6-hour project. In the 4-H world, 6 hours is the length of time required for a 4-H project, so we were able to put the youth through a full project on a weekend.
And Catherine, was that held on a Saturday?
Yes, it was a Saturday.
The next question is also for the same group, the San Luis Obispo Santa Barbara group. For the youth training, what curriculum did you use?
We used a variety of curriculums. Shannon, do you want to list some of our nutrition ed curriculums we use there? Maybe Shannon's not there. So Shaping Healthy Choices, the Discovering Healthy Choices curriculum is one of the most frequent ones that we use, but we use nutrition education curriculums in K through 6th grades, and we were also using 4-H curriculum for things like our cooking academies.
Sorry, we were muted too. Yeah, we also just used some basics, going back to basic cooking skills with knife safety, food safety, with Make It Safe to Keep It Safe. We also did some Smarter Lunchroom movement training in there. And then we also used Catch for the physical activity breaks and training recess activators.
And 4-H used a presentation manual that's provided by the state 4-H, and in there was tips on how to give a presentation, your gestures during a presentation, eye contact, and that was, I actually submitted it to Mary Ann for, to share with everybody, just tips that we gave youth that'll help them with building their presentation skills.
So yes, that will be shared out with the resources that Candace was mentioning earlier. Great, thank you. We have another question from Kate, and this one is directed towards Raymond. How exactly do you present or calculate the ROI for a school meal participation for a school? And how do you present that data to a principal to show revenue loss?
For the data that we presented to the principal that's working with the cafeteria manager, she is the expert on that topic. And so she was able to help us develop the the material that we presented to the principal itself.
Great. Okay, we had another question for you, Raymond, from Deborah. What do you envision for sustainability on these programs once your specific program is over?
Just quickly, one of them is, and we try any project or initiative that we create, we want to kind of make sure that we can embed it into the daily kind of routines of lunch and for the cafeteria staff. For one of our next steps that I didn't mention here was the students want to kind of develop a volunteer program where students are able to kind of volunteer inside the cafeteria and learn a little bit more about the process and things like that. So it's still in the concept phase, but we're still working with the principal and the cafeteria manager to see if that's possible and how it will look.
Great, thank you, Raymond. We have another question for the San Luis Obispo Santa Barbara County group from Carrie Yarwood. For the snack group, did they meet twice a week for an hour and a half, or was it led by UC CalFresh staff?
UC CalFresh and 4-H was at each of these meetings. At only one school, we did the hour and a half 2 times a week, and that was only for about a month and a half to 2 months. At other schools, we met at lunchtime, and we continued at this other school after the extended day program had ended at lunchtime also once a week.
Great. Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions. If you do have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat box. We still have a few minutes left, so we can allow time for that. But it doesn't look like we're getting anything. So if you do have questions, you have my contact information. I'm Marianne Mills, and you also have Candace's contact information. As Candace mentioned, we will be sharing out the resources from today, and the recording will be posted to the TAPS resource page. We do have an evaluation at the end of the webinar, so please take a few moments to complete that so we can get your feedback. And just a quick reminder that the next TAPS webinar will be in October of 2016, and we will be sending out save the dates as it gets a little bit closer. So thank you all so much for attending today. Have a wonderful day.